Good evening, everybody, and thank you for joining us for the regular meeting of Fernie City Council held at 6 p.m. on October 10th, 2023. Isukukit. We acknowledge that the city of Fernie is located within Kukinamakis, the unceded territory of Yakutat Nucleat, and we recognize that we live and work in their vast lands. Akanahunik are from Yakutat Nucleat and are members of the Tanaha-speaking peoples of British Columbia, Idaho, and Montana. I'll call this meeting to order. This meeting is being conducted by in-person and electronic means in accordance with Council Procedure Bylaw number 2446. I'll ask for a mover and a seconder for approval of the agenda and any late items. Moved by Councillor Hamilton, seconded by Councillor Ramadas. Any discussion? All in favor? Unanimous, thank you. I'll now ask for a mover and a seconder for adoption of the minutes of our regular council meeting held on September 26, 2023. Moved by Councillor Hamilton, seconded by Councillor Ramadas. Discussion? All in favor? Thank you. I'll now open the floor to public participation. I'll invite members of the public in attendance or participating electronically who wish to comment on items listed on the meeting agenda in accordance with section 3.7.3 of the procedure bylaw to address council, except speakers must not address council regarding a matter for which a public hearing must be held or has been held pursuant to the Local Government Act prior to council's consideration of the matter or adoption of the bylaw. Speakers must not address council regarding a permit for which public notice must be given or has been given pursuant to the Local Government Act prior to council's consideration of issuance of the permit, and a speaker may only address council for a maximum of 3 minutes. And I'll first check in the room if there's anybody who wishes to address council. Please step forward, identify yourself, give us your name and your civic address, please.
I'm here more as a observer and listener than to present anything. I realize that I'm taking up almost the whole agenda here, and I guess things have changed so many times that I don't know where I stand. I had a demolition permit for a year, and they pulled that on me, so I don't even know where I'm at right now. I'm not disputing that the building should come down. That is the plan, of course. As far as being a hazard, well, you've got an engineer to decide that, I guess. I just want to say I'm in it every day. It stood up quite well over the winter, and it's not empty yet, so I can't pull the walls down yet. But I mean, that could happen in a day once things are cleaned up around there. Of course, everybody realizes that there was no insurance on the building, so it's not a simple matter of somebody else coming in to demolish and take care of everything. I'm a one-man show. I'm trying to do it on my own for the least amount of cost, obviously, that I can manage. And it's been dragging on because at the same time, all this happening, I've got that cleanup order for the property. So I'm there every day trying to deal with that. And I haven't gotten around to actually starting to deal with the structure that's there. So I mean, I realize that I'm not going to change anything or anybody's mind, but we'll see what the engineer has to say and take it from there, I guess. You know, the more time I have, the more appreciated, of course. I don't have much more to say other than that. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pelozio. Mr. Host? And sorry, could you state your name and give us your civic address if you don't
You
mind?
bet.
Please.
Good evening, Mayor. My name is Simon Howes. Live at 15 Piedmont Drive. On behalf of Montane Developments, I'd like to discuss the recent urban systems memorandum concerning the Montane Water Servicing report. I like to believe that we are in a community that values fairness, transparency, and equity. It's these core values that have made Fernie a place where people want to live, work, and invest. Over the years, the city of Fernie, with its development cost charges, or DCCs, has shown a commitment to distributing the financial responsibilities of infrastructure projects in a manner that is both fair to existing residents and appealing to potential investors. These DCCs are not just arbitrary charges. They are a reflection of our shared responsibility and mutual benefit in community-wide projects. Additionally, it's imperative to understand that DCCs are 100% paid for by the new homeowner, not the developer. The Urban System Memorandum raises some concerns that we feel urgently need addressing. Why? First of all, the Urban Systems Report clearly states, and I quote, "The immediate need of the Southeast Reservoir to facilitate the Montane development, coupled with the lack of DCC reserve funds, also illustrate that the project is out of sequence." This is simply not true. The only reason a reservoir is needed now is to facilitate multifamily housing. Montane Developments is not seeking to build multifamily at elevations that require a reservoir. City Council back in 2021 was seeking more multifamily, not Montane Developments. My letter to Mayor Milligan on September 26 better outlines Montane Developments' response to the Urban Systems Memo. I kindly request you revisit that letter prior to making any decisions, because at its heart, this is about more than just water servicing or the nuances of development charges. This is about how our city makes decisions and whether these decisions uphold the values and principles that are spelled out in the OCP. For example, the removal of the Southeast Reservoir project from the DCC list without a clear explanation makes any rational person question the consistency of
30 seconds,
decisions
Simon.
made for the community. What about the principles of the DCC bylaw, which emphasize the dual benefit of the infrastructure projects to both existing and new development? In conclusion, we kindly request the council pause and delve deeper into the concerns highlighted in our letter. Let us work collaboratively to ensure that our infrastructure funding decisions mirror the ideals of equity, transparency, and the broader interests of the Fernie community. Options 1, 2, and 3, and 4 in the memorandum are all worthy of more discussion.
Thank you,
We seek
Simon.
to find a better path forward.
Thanks very much, Mr. House. Thank you. Ms. Rhodes, is there anyone online who's indicated interest to speak? Seeing none, I'll thank both our speakers for their perspective. Which moves us immediately on to item 9.1, Montane Development Application and DCC Memo, a report from our Acting Manager of Engineering. Mr. Baird?
Hello, Council. Thank you. As a follow-up presentation made by the Director of Engineering and Public Works at the July Committee of the Whole meeting, I'm here tonight to not seek a resolution for advancing one-off changes to the development costs charges bylaw project list or seeking other funding sources for the Southeast Reservoir and related infrastructure on the Montaigne property at this time. Earlier this year, staff received a request by Paris-Known Developments to explore various funding options for a reservoir related to infrastructure on the Montaigne property. Since then, staff have worked with a local government advisor to prepare a presentation to council related to these items. The presentation and attached report from Urban Systems does not support proceeding with these requests. And for example, I can touch on some of the main components now. First off, advancing or amending the DCC project list that we currently have. The Montaigne Reservoir and water infrastructure projects do have some characteristics of good and poor DCC projects. But including this infrastructure in a DCC project list would require a major update to our bylaw, which is a lengthy process. Could take anywhere from 12 to 18 months. And after this update, the reservoir and related infrastructure might not necessarily end up on the DCC project list, but it could. Now, at the time of the Urban Systems memo that you all received back in July, the city did not have a DCC bylaw update in the work plan, but staff are now prioritizing scoping this project and will include it to council for consideration and budgeting. Another thing that we looked at was evaluation of the municipal assist factor. This would go along with a major DCC update or form a part of it. And that's a policy decision for council, doesn't rely on any technical DCC calculations. Important to note that previous councils decided to keep the municipal assist factor at 1%. And this was a clear message from past councils that they decided that new development should pay their fair share of costs allocated to growth. If the assist factor were to be increased during a DCC update, existing residents would have to subsidize those costs through increased taxes or water use fees. Alternately, or in addition to that, adjusting the benefit allocation similar to the municipal assist factor, but based on technical information as part of a DCC update. And it would vary depending on the benefit that those projects have to the community. And lastly, exploring grant or other funding strategies. Typically, grants we go after, the city would pursue them for projects that are of very high priority, usually directed towards rectifying deficiencies rather than paying for growth-related projects. With that, council, regarding these funding options, take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Baird. Questions from council. Councillor Audia Kelly.
Thank you, Mayor Milligan, through to staff. Could staff please give a little bit of background? I'm looking at Schedule G of the Water System Master Plan from the OCP. Could we get a little bit of background of when and why it was removed? I also understand that the location of it was also relocated from outside the boundaries. Maybe wrong about.
Thank you. I guess regarding the removal of the Southeast Reservoir from the previous DCC project, is that list? Can I clarify? Sorry.
Apologies. I see it in our OCP as part of our Schedule G Water System Master Plan. And then I understand that it was subsequently taken. A little bit confused.
Or if I may, Your Worship, before he answers, if we could ask you to potentially speak to the microphone because you are cutting out. I apologize for interrupting you.
I'm unaware why or if it was removed from the OCP. I do know it was on a previous DCC project list and was removed in the current DCC projects, but also not aware of any why it was. Would have to do some further research.
Mr. Baranowski, can you help with that?
Thank you, Your Worship. It was in the previous DCC project list. And we have done a deep dive through our records and tried to find rationale a number of times as to why the specific projects through the last major DCC update changed. This is one that was in, and then following a major update was not in. So again, the process moving forward would be to undertake that major update, look at all of the projects, and then determine which ones would be included, and then charge DCCs for those. It does, however, remain part of the official community plan. That is correct.
Councillor Hamilton.
Thank you. Yeah, is staff able to provide us with a timeline for the new DCC project update?
Yeah, staff is currently scoping that and would be including that in this upcoming budget request for the 2024 budget.
Thank you. Other questions from council? Councillor Ramirez.
Thanks, Your Worship. So that project was on the DCC list and now it isn't there, right? That's not the fault of the developer, right? It's our internal procedure that has been unable to understand where it is.
Baranowski.
Thank you, Your Worship. That's not quite accurate. The major DCC update would look again, take a fresh set of eyes at all of our major projects that are considered, whether they're in the OCP or a master plan or not, and then would have through that work created a new master list of projects. So that's a facilitated major DCC update that includes identifying all of your major capital projects required for growth in the community, creating a new master project list, assigning an assist factor, and then sending that to the province for approval. So through that process, a decision will have been made on what to include and what not to include. Unfortunately, not being in that room and not being able to find a record as to exactly why the list was updated, we don't have the organizational memory and haven't found a record of a justification of why that specifically isn't in the list any longer, than the updated DCC list.
Further? Councillor Adia Kelly.
Through Mayor Milligan to CAO, are you able to tell us, I believe the DCC bylaw is circa 0304? Do we know when that major update was done?
The most, Councillor Adia Kelly through Mayor Milligan, the most recent update was, I believe, 2015. And we are due for previously discussed committee of the whole meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Baird. If I may, I'm curious, like the memo speaks to the reservoir specifically and lays out in response to the request from the developer, but I struggle a little bit. Is this a black and white question? Because the memo also lays out a whole bunch of other alternatives, and have we explored additional alternatives like some sort of distributed water system? I appreciate you're not asking for a decision tonight, Mr. Baird, but are we continuing this conversation? Because it does provide, exploring options does provide the opportunity for the community to grow. And I also struggle, and I understand, like looking at the urban systems memo and the projected cost of a reservoir. And I think based on our recent experience with the really just the operation and maintenance of our Fernie Creek Reservoir, I suspect the O&M costs for a $16 million reservoir are vastly understated in the urban systems memo. Like it worries me that even that, like we are seeing cost escalation across the board, and as such, the build and the maintenance of that would be significantly expensive and significant burden to the taxpayers of the community. But I guess my ultimate question is, what other options are we exploring? Are we saying no, absolutely? Or are we still in conversation with the proponent to see what options are available? There are local area service options. There are I don't know if anyone's investigated distributed water systems or anything of that nature that we can continue the conversation.
Thank you, Mayor Milligan. Tonight, the resolution I'm seeking is to say at this time, the efforts that we've put in and by all means, shouldn't close the door on the developer, but putting additional staff time to something like this direction from Heisler, do you have any?
Here through Mayor Milligan. Hear me okay? Yeah, we kind of investigated these requests from the developer. Maybe didn't really understand the scope of what we were getting into, and we ended up actioning a bunch of staff time. And then we funded through operating found an expert that could give us best practices on DCCs related to these requests. And that's where the memorandum came from. We also funded that from operating budget too. So we're willing to continue to investigate these with the proponent. However, if we are going to start actioning significant staff time and potentially more consultant fees, I'd like to come to council ahead of time and kind of scope out the ask and scope out the cost and the effort and get approval ahead of time. So at this point, we're kind of pumping the brakes because we've already spent quite a bit of time and money looking into this request. I think there's a better process for that where we come to you ahead of time, bit of a scoped out project, and get your approval to look into things.
Apologies again, this is just a training circumstance. So I appreciate council members wish to talk sort of away from the chair. If you're, as a recommendation, essentially keep the microphone between you and where you're talking to. You have lost a couple of you twice in that last conversation. So if you do that, if you're doing this kind of a thing, keep the microphone between you and where you're facing, and then trust me, we won't lose you. So thank you.
Councillor Shoesmith.
My question's sort of halfway has been answered, but it strikes me that we've got this reservoir that's proposed, but that could mean a lot of different things in terms of how it functions and its effect on the town. I mean, if it's just a tiny little thing and feeds just one portion of it, one development, that's different, obviously, from something that could then be useful to the rest of the town. So I don't really feel I have the information until we have some sort of more tangible thing to look at. Like, is there an actual plan somewhere, or like a capacity, or I just don't feel qualified to make a decision on this until.
Mr. Heisler?
Through Mayor Milligan. Yeah, I mean, the process typically with development would be they come forward with a proposal and we evaluate it, see if it works. This one kind of went a bit backwards. They came forward with a proposal partially due to us wanting to understand best practices. We actioned the expert in the field, which the memorandum gave us a whole bunch of best practices, which we'll look at in the future too with the DCC state. However, it's not, unless council actions us, it's not really our directive to investigate all the different options for them to bring them to us. And this is what we had on our table at the time. We are in contact with the proponent with a few more agenda items and more inquiries and more questions. And we will be scoping that out in the next couple of weeks, and then probably guys for approval to action that with staff time and potential funding to reach out to experts.
Thank you. Yeah, it feels to me, rather than decide tonight, Mr. Baird, that come to council as a package. If you understand what I'm saying, like the work that's been done to date and the work that's proposed going forward, so that we, to Councillor Shoesmith's point, that we have the best, fullest information that we can to make a decision on this as to directing your time and the resources allocated to it. Mr. Barnowski.
Thank you, Your Worship. To council, we specifically are not, and this may not have come through clearly in the reporter presentation, we are not seeking a resolution to say no to the reservoir.
Yeah.
We are simply stating we are not seeking a resolution at this time to advance the request of modifying the DCC project list to fund this at this moment in time, or the requests that were in that original package. As applications come in or as new designs come in, we're obviously happy to continue to work collaboratively, to continue to assess those. And if they're going to require significant time for us to review and assess as the regulator and as the eventual owner of said infrastructure, we would come to council seeking approval for that scope of work.
Thank you. Councillor Hamilton.
Thank you. Yes. My personal thoughts and feelings kind of echo Councillor Shoesmith's of, I don't feel like I have the right information right now to make a decision on this, and as such support staff's request for no direction. Knowing that the DCC overhaul is in the works for the 2024 work plan, looking at holistically what the community is facing as far as development cost charges and projects that will be requiring DCC fees. I think we're going to much better serve our community by looking at the bigger picture, the grander scope of things, as opposed to just trying to chase one-off projects all the time.
Thank you. I don't disagree, because I think there are a number of factors that need to be considered, not least of all is given our summer this year, water security for our community, and what sort of water storage would we benefit from in terms of, I was quite alarmed, Mr. Heisler, when I saw those turbidity photos generated simply by hot weather. So yeah, I don't know exactly how to frame the direction, but I think a more holistic package that considers, sort of the broadest possible impacts to the community, and I appreciate that is way too vague. Mr. Heisler.
Just to jump in there at kind of a good point where you bring up looking at it as a whole package. I think that would be the point of the DCC review. If approved by council next year, we know a lot more about Ferry Creek. We know a lot more about our regular turbidity and now a heat related turbidity. We also have selenium in the mix at our secondary source. So there's a lot of balls in the air, and it would be, in my opinion, prudent of council to evaluate them all together.
Thank you. Councillor Ramirez.
Thank you, Worship. I completely agree with what you were saying. It's not a binary issue here. We just need a little bit more detail. And to call this as a one-off project is also a little problematic because it's not one-off. Water security is an important infrastructure item for our town. So yeah, I am in favor of bringing in some more qualitative as well as quantitative information for the council. It's not very binary saying yay or nay here.
Agreed. Yeah, Mr. Bornowski, I'd look to you to how we frame that moving forward.
Your worship, is council seeking then to direct staff to begin designing potential solutions for the reservoir and scenarios? Or is council simply saying, let's not close the door to the infrastructure that may enable the development here to go ahead and other benefits, and let's assess that when it comes in, because those are two very different paths.
Yeah, and I'm grateful you framed it that way because I don't have a sense, particularly on the water security question, if there are other benefits for the community. It feels to me that it's been framed as and to use Councillor Ramdass's feedback as a binary question, but I think it's broader than that, and I think we need to have some of those inputs in order to make a more informed decision. But I confess, I don't know exactly how to frame that to one, overburden staff, or to frame it in such a way that it is a reasonable request in terms of workload.
Your worship, I think we could provide some of our manager of engineering's analysis on the potential general benefits. Certainly when discussion of the reservoir first came in, there was discussion of what were the secondary benefits, and that dialogue happened between engineer for the applicant and our manager of engineering in the assessment of whether it was for the broader community or primarily to serve the development. As Mr. House has said, the style of development where it may be proposed to be built. That can be shared with council for context. If you are comfortable waiting for the assessment of the project along with all major capital projects through a DCC update, or determining for future growth areas and potential future land uses through an OCP, it would be then prudent to say, if this is coming in as a newly designed alternative solution, then we can respond to it, but let's focus on those major projects first. If you are looking to advance this ahead of those, then a resolution directing staff to propose potential exploration options and considerations to bring more information back to council would be helpful.
Yeah, I guess ultimately, and would ask council to step in here if I've got this wrong. I don't think we're asking to advance this necessarily as a project. We're asking to understand, to your point, the potential benefits to the community as a whole of this project, and what are other alternatives that maybe provide benefit to the community as well. As I said, some sort of distributed water system that whether it has smaller reservoirs or pressure stations or whatever that may be. Councillor Audie Kelly.
Thanks, Mayor Milligan. Through to staff. I understand that we don't have why it was taken out of the DCC list, but do we know why it was in the OCP in the first place and why it's part of the water system master plan to have a southeast reservoir? Do we at least have that historical institutional memory? Could we provide it with that source?
Maybe not in this meeting, council, but we can bring that back to you, certainly.
Thank you, because I think that would maybe help us with the context and why it was part of the master plan in the OCP in the first place.
So I would turn to you, Mr. Barnowski. I guess ultimately, what is our next step here? It feels like council is asking for a bit more context, and I think we'd all be a bit more comfortable if we had that context in which to base our decision.
Certainly. I suppose a resolution to bring back context regarding the reservoir from the official community plan and notes from previous discussions on potential secondary community benefits, that be brought back to council.
Thank you. That would be helpful.
I'll need some time to work on that resolution, Your Worship.
Thank you, Mr. McConnell. How much time do you need? Do you want a 5-minute recess?
That might be helpful, yes.
Ms. Rhodes? Thank you. We're back. And your question was, should this,
Apologies. So we have a proposed resolution in the chat, but the question really should become, in what form should this information come back? Do we have it considered as a staff report or as an information memo to the meeting?
I suspect an information memo to the meeting.
And I will, if folks are fine with the resolution as it reads, I will add that portion into it when I read it up.
Okay. Thoughts?
So the resolution is that staff bring forward contextual information regarding the Southeast Reservoir from the official community plan and information regarding staff's assessment of the additional community benefits related to advancing the Southeast Reservoir at this time to a future meeting of council in the form of a memo.
Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Shoesmith, seconded by Councillor Audia Kelly. Any further discussion? All in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you. That brings us to item 9.2, a report from Bylaw Enforcement Officer Kramer. Request for remedial action. Officer Kramer.
Thanks very much, Your Worship, members of council. Just to reiterate, I am hearing impaired, so I may not fully hear any questions in the end. So we'll try our best to work through that. Bylaw Services is requesting a remedial action requirement on 1040 Coquitlam Avenue, Fernie, BC. I want to thank the owner of the property, Mr. Pelosio, for attending tonight's meeting. And Bylaw Services continues and look forwards to working with Mr. Pelosio to bring his properties into compliance. Prior to beginning in this presentation, it should be noted as a matter of record that 1040 Coquitlam Avenue and 1080 Coquitlam Avenue are presently the subject of a remedial action requirement dated November 28th, 2022 by this council with an expiry date of May 30th, 2023. And we continue to work with Mr. Pelosio with that remedial action requirement as well. So the purpose of my presentation tonight is to seek council's approval for a remedial action requirement for the fire damaged building located at 1040 Coquitlam Avenue, Furnish, British Columbia. And we are recommending that council declare the fire damaged building as a declared nuisance as defined under section 74 of the community charter and impose a remedial action requirement to have the building safely demolished and removed. During that section 74, it's incumbent on council to consider that the structure so dilapidated or unclean as to be offensive to the community. And that the second part of my presentation is to seek a structural engineering report to assist in determining whether or not that structure is a hazardous condition that exists under section 73 of the community charter. So the background on this particular structure, on January 8th, Fernie Fire Rescue responded to a structure fire located at the 1040 Coquitlam Avenue. They subsequently extinguished the fire and the building was severely damaged and the roof had collapsed. On February 2nd, 2023, a demolition permit was granted by building official Eric Stout, in which work must be initiated within 6 months and completed within 12 months, thus to demolish the entire building. Building official Eric Stout also provided a checklist for demolition, which provided to the owner, Mr. Pelosio. And he also gave an additional 3 months to initiate demolition. It's usually 3 months under our bylaw, but he gave him an extra 3 months to start it. On January 8th, there we go. January 8th, Fernie Fire Rescue obtained several photos, which are attached. I'll show those shortly, of the building. after the fire was extinguished. And on March 21st, myself attended 1040 Colclough Avenue, obtained several other photos of the building showing its state of disrepair. And on August 9th, I did the same. I attended and obtained several photographs of the building showing the state of disrepair and noted that no work had been initiated specifically towards demolition of the building. On August 9th, the owner, Mr. Pelozzo, was personally served by myself with a letter authored by the building official, Eric Stout, indicating the demolition permit had expired. No work had been initiated and a new application would be required to be submitted. So under our community standards bylaw, unsightly, the definition, any properties that display one or more of the following characteristics to extent as a whole, it appears unkempt, unmaintained, dilapidated, or in disrepair. And that includes a structure that contains holes, breaks, rot, surfaces that are crumbling, cracking, or substantially rusted, or the paint has substantially peeled, or windows in a structure that are broken. And it goes on in the community standards bylaw to indicate no owner or occupier of the premise or premises shall cause or contain or allow the following or combination thereof on land to become or remain unsightly. So looking at the photos that I'm going to show council, whether they consider that meets the definition. So these are the photos that were taken by Fire Rescue, Fernie Fire Department on January 9th. You can see the building there. There's a substantial crack along the wall that faces Colclough Avenue. Of course, the roof is completely collapsed, debris falling inside. So quite, it shows quite dilapidated at the point. These were taken by myself on March 21st, 2023. You can once again see the crack that's on the left-hand side. And council should note that there is an occupied residence probably about 5 feet away from that particular east wall. Once again, you can see that there's the doors there don't have any windows in them anymore. They were taken down and it's boarded up to about 6 feet. These were taken on August 9th by myself. Same type of photographs showing no work had been initiated to demolish the building in any way, shape, or form, and that the roof has collapsed and lots of debris on the outside, and even in the back, no attempts to actually demolish the building. So on August 23rd, Eric Stout, building official, addressed council via letter on the status of the fire damaged building located at the address 1040 Colclough Avenue. And in his expertise indicated with the collapsed roof structure and unknown structural integrity of the masonry block, seasonal change in winter and snow loads presents a structurally unsafe condition. He goes on to say that the east wall is of high concern to the neighborhood property. He recommends that due to the unsafe conditions of the building be demolished, or alternatively have a structural engineer provide a report of the status of the masonry block walls and provide assurance that they are structurally sound and no unsafe conditions exist. So bylaw services look into the fact that this is definitely meets the definition of unsightly, that it is offensive to the community. It is in a dilapidated condition. We recommend that a remedial action order. But on the in continuing with that, Mr. Stout has brought forward a concern about public safety, and I think it's an imperative and incumbent on us to make sure that we cover that off and make sure that we get a structural engineering report to say whether or not it is due to snow loads or freezing and thawing may become an imminent danger to public safety. So here is the basis, along with the other pictures, that we're requesting council approve a structural engineering report. You can see there's a large crack on the masonry wall there and an occupied residence approximately 5 feet away from the east wall. So we have to provide justification to council under section 73 of the community charter that this may constitute a hazard condition. Thus, we are requesting a structural engineering report. This will assist council in informed decision on the status of the building and the next type of action that may be required. Staff, after a meeting with the planning department, secured 3 quotes within the purchasing policy authorities. Pending resolution from council on a funding source, city is prepared to accept a contract to Blue Rock Engineering, Mr. Clark Weber, at a cost of $1,500 plus GST. So the options that we have is that council declare the fire damaged building located at 1040 Coclow Avenue, Fernie, British Columbia, as a declared nuisance and impose a remedial action requirement to have the building safely demolished and removed. And the council approve the expenditure of a structural engineering report from Blue Rock Engineering and a resolution authorizing Mr. Clark Weber to enter on and into property with or without the owner's consent. Bylaw Services has been working quite closely with Mr. Pelosio. We have informed him that we would be seeking a structural engineer's report to assist us in making a determination on public safety, and we would share those findings with Mr. Pelosio. And that we would also seek his consent to go onto property in order to have that engineering report completed. Option 2 is that the council declare a fire damaged building located at 1040 Coclow Avenue, Fernie, British Columbia, declared nuisance and impose a remedial action requirement to have the building safely demolished and removed. That's basically as it is unsightly, dilapidated, and offensive to the community. And of course, the option for council to do otherwise. So those are the resolutions that are prepared for council, and I will answer any questions that they may have.
Thank you, Officer Kramer. Any questions from council? Councilor Hamilton.
Thank you, your worship. Do we have a mechanism for cost recovery of this engineering assessment? And then further to that, the costs for demolition and remediation?
Thank you, through your worship, to Councilman Hamilton. The cost recovery for the actual structural engineering report, that cost is borne by the city because it's incumbent on that we provide the justification to council if it is a hazardous condition. So that's on us. As far as cost recovery on demolition, that would be under section 17 of the community charter. Depending on the circumstances, if the city had to move in and demolish the building, then the invoice would be sent to the owner, non-payment, then it would go on default on taxes for that tax year.
Thank you.
Any other questions from council? Seeing none, I will ask Mr. McConnell, sorry. You're raising
Go
your
ahead.
finger. What is that?
No. I'll let you finish, your worship.
Okay. To read the recommendation. Sorry, Councilor Hamilton.
Sorry, I did have one further question,
Okay,
if I may.
Yeah.
What is the city's recourse? Should we go ahead with the structural engineering report and, or I guess let me rephrase the question. Is it on us to do the building demolition, or is that on the property owner?
We always try to work with the property owner to come into compliance. We don't like to always, step in. Case in point, there is a remedial action order in place right now. It was supposed to be completed on May 30th. That has since come and gone. But we continue to work with the homeowner if they're making incremental steps towards compliance. So it is on it's on the owner to actually do the demolition. And I think Mr. Pelosio has stated that's his intentions. So we would work with him in order to get that accomplished. And but it all depends on timelines and whether or not that demolition prevents or presents a public safety hazard as a demolition is actually occurring, or presents a safety hazard right now, and we may have to expedite that process. And that's where the city may have to step in.
Thank you.
thank you, Officer Kramer. And as such, before I get Mr. McConnell to read the recommendation, I do want to say I am not unsympathetic to Mr. Pelosi's situation here. And, you know, a fire, that was a dramatic event for the entire community. And it certainly pales to what a dramatic event it would be for the property owner. But we do, particularly if there's an unsafe condition, we do really need to ensure community safety, and we also need to ensure community standards. So while I'm not unsympathetic, I think this is a matter that needs to be dealt with. So on that note, Mr. McConnell.
Thank you, Your Worship. And I'm noting that the PowerPoint resolutions don't read exactly the way they do in the agenda package. So I wanted to make sure with Mr. Bylaw Officer Kramer that I'm gathering that the resolutions that are in the PowerPoint are the ones that you are needing to be read, not the ones that were in the report. Turn on your microphone. Turn on.
Yes, the ones up on the presentation are the resolutions that I would like to see go.
Okay, thank you. And if I may, for further, I don't believe that we need to authorize the expenditure that's in resolution 2, just that we authorize the obtaining of the structural engineer, because the expenditure is below what would be in the policy. So I want to make sure that council knew what I was reading and how I was going to read it, if that's okay.
Thank you. No, I appreciate that clarity. I do think, though, we have to name the structural engineer in order for him to enter the property.
Yes,
Is that correct?
it's simply the expenditure amount.
Okay, thank you. Please proceed.
Thank you, Your Worship. So resolution number 1 is council declares the fire damaged building located at 1040 Coldclaw Avenue, Fernie, British Columbia, a declared nuisance, and imposes a remedial action requirement that the fire damaged building located at 1040 Coldclaw Avenue, Fernie, BC, be demolished and removed, and that if the owner fails to do so within 45 days of the date of the imposition of this remedial action requirement, that the city shall be at liberty to enter onto the property by way of its employees, contractors, or agents to cause the fire damaged building to be removed, and that if the costs of so doing are not paid by December 31st of the year in which such costs were incurred by the owner, the amount be added to property taxes.
Thank you. Can I have a mover? Councilor Ramirez, seconded by Councilor Hamilton. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed?
Thank you.
Thank you.
And the second resolution is, excuse me, if we could return that to the thank you. Council authorizes the obtaining of a structural engineering report from Blue Rock Engineering, and per section 16 sub 2 of the community charter authorizes Clark Weber to enter on and into the property at 1040 Coldclaw Avenue, Fernie, BC, if required without the owner's consent.
Can I have a mover, please? Councilor Ramirez, seconded by Councilor Hamilton. Any further discussion? All in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you. Thank you, Officer Kramer. That brings us to item 11, reports from council members. Councilor Ramirez.
I don't have anything to report, Your Worship.
No problem. Thank you. Councilor Hamilton.
Thank you. I'd like to start off by thanking Chief Morgan for an invite to a presentation by Michael Bortolotto about leadership. It was a very entertaining evening. Learned some interesting stories, heard some interesting stories. Also attended the flag raising ceremony on National Truth and Reconciliation Day across the street at City Hall. And just hope that everybody out there in the community made the most of the weather this weekend and gave lots of thanks and spent lots of time with friends and family.
Thank you, Councilor Hamilton. Counselor Shoesmith.
Yeah, happy Thanksgiving, everybody. I had the honor of joining the mayor and Councillor Audia Kelly on the committee to youth counselor, and I gotta say, I was extremely impressed with all of the candidates. Really hard to I'm also slightly involved in bringing skijoring to town for the spring, so I'm kind of just helping out. That's going to be something fun for everybody to look forward to.
Thank you. Counselor Audia Kelly.
Thanks, Mayor Milligan. I don't have a lot to report, as fortunately COVID at UBCM. We lost so I didn't get to attend a lot of the functions, and I was really sad to not attend staff appreciation. Very much appreciate. I did participate with Councillor. I'd like to echo the young folks that we interviewed were so amazing and impressive. They were all active with various causes, with volunteer work, with employment. They also had their sports and their studies, which they all had good grades, creative activities. So I'm really feeling really confident about the future of our community being really bright with young leaders. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. I don't have a lot to add. I attended many of the events that people have touched on. The inspirational evening put on by our fire department was an excellent presentation and a great turnout. And I want to thank the citizens of Fernie for coming out on a very rainy Truth and Reconciliation Saturday. I was very grateful to see everybody participating there. And yes, I also enjoyed the staff appreciation lunch. A great opportunity to recognize staff and recognize long service, which is important for the continuity of our community. So thank you, everybody, for that. And I will now ask Mr. McConnell. We will move to close, and I'll ask you to read the recommendation.
Thank you, Your Worship. And you'll notice there's a slight change to the one in the agenda. The staff recommendation is that the meeting be closed to the public pursuant to sections 90 sub 1 sub A, E, and K of the Community Charter as the subject matter concerns personal information about an identifiable individual who holds or is being considered for a position as an officer, employee, or agent of the municipality, or another position appointed by the municipality. The acquisition, disposition, or expropriation of land or improvements that council considers the disclosure of could reasonably be expected to harm the interests of the municipality, and negotiations and related discussions respecting the proposed provision of a municipal service that are at their preliminary stages and that, in the view of the council, could reasonably be expected to harm the interests of the municipality if they were held in public.
Thank you, Mr. McConnell. Can I have a mover? Councilor Ramirez, seconded by Councilor Hamilton. Any discussion? All in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you. We'll take a 10-minute recess. Thanks.